Hey guys, welcome to the Live, Live, Play.
You're listening to the Live, Live, Play
podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Kinsler, and today I have Coach Matt Lisle. He is a baseball coach. He's coached. He's a father of five. I think I'm right in saying father of five. He's got a dog, bull mastiff. He is the most followed. Just hit over 1 million followers on all social platforms. I've seen that recently. And he is an author of this book. I actually just got you last week, which is quite funny, but also quite scary that some of these things happen. So Matt, firstly, thanks for being on the show. I think that we can get a lot of insight. I followed you, I think it was about 3-4 years ago when a friend of mine posted one of your posts, and it was about a parent. It was one of your posts about pushy parents. And then I started following you on Facebook. And just ever since then, it's always been something like you always post and show up in regards to kids having better attitude, better character, parents acknowledging that sport still needs to be fun. So you've played, like, I know you played like obviously baseball, but you also played football. You played a bit of basketball in your younger days, and coached again multiple sports. But when it comes to youth, what in your opinion is most essential to athletic development for even like saying like younger kids between 6 to 10 and then kind of teenagers? Where would you feel that kids need to spend more time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the sport a little bit, but we really need to work on athletic development. I work with hitters in baseball, which is a very technical, thing, and versus other sports where maybe it's not as technical. And so you have to have a very efficient swing when you play baseball or softball or cricket, and something where you're swinging a bat, rotational movement athletes. And so for me, just being really good athletes. And I think, like I said, in high school, I did baseball, basketball, football, and I ran track. And I just think that those things helped me to be able to cross other paths. I was just a good athlete. And I think that helped. And I think for high schoolers and above, 13, 14 years old, I think the biggest gains are made in the weight room and strength and conditioning. And for us, at the college level, especially as freshmen come in, I think everyone for the most part is trying their best in regards to their practice plans and their technical skills. And there's some differences here and there. But to me, I always tell college athletes, the biggest gains that you can make as a team and in your sport is in the weight room, because I think, again, just being stronger, faster, more athletic can help you to do the more technical tasks better. If we ask athletes to do very technical tasks, and they just can't do them because they don't have the stability or the mobility to do those things. And for like example, in hitting, hitting is about creating hip hinge, being able to hinge well, like in a deadlift position, and being able to maintain that posture through the swing. Same thing with golf. So we spend a lot of times working on hip hinge and what we call side bend and maintaining posture. Well, as baseball coaches, we're doing all these drills to do these things, but if the athletes don't have the mobility or stability to do these basic movements, it just makes it more difficult. So just creating better athletes is my answer to being able to be a better sport developer.
I know I 100% agree. And I know in America, you are well ahead of the game in regards to high school kids get a weight room for pretty much most sports, if I'm right. In Ireland, it's so like you don't really get the weight room until you're professional, which you've already created your bad habits. And when we do strength and conditioning camps with a basketball company who runs camps for some of Ireland's best, and which Ireland's best is they're brilliant players, but again, we don't have the best standard in regards to the world of basketball. But the coach from North Carolina, Mike, he was always I was saying the same thing. It's like, you're good, but you have no meat, you have no armor, you have no strength. You need to become stronger, and the only way to become stronger is get some strength and conditioning, and also help with injuries. So I'm 100%, and that's a lot of the stuff that we do here, is teaching kids to become competent, to build their confidence through movement and making them strong, both physically and mentally. And for athletes, I think it's essential, but for kids that don't play sport, who aren't naturally talented to play sport, I think that when they learn how to move their body, they can go into sport then and actually enjoy something that they might have given up on in early years, which happens. We see it all the time. But it's just part of, I suppose, people still kind of look at weight training, I suppose, as not good for kids or not good for youths. And sport is still king in regards to development, like a kind of exercise, whereas you can do an awful lot more. And I think you can get a little bit more bang for your buck from all avenues with kids and teens if you have them doing some sort of physical fitness the way it used to be, like climbing rope, horse jumping, all that stuff, which very few people do anymore, because you get sued or something will happen to you. Well, one of the things that I like about, and you in a lot of the shows you've done on YouTube, you get across the same point in regards to character and hard work. And you've even said it about your own kids, like even if they're doing multi-sports, that if you're doing a sport, you're giving it 100% and you're going all in. But and then you also mentioned about keeping it fun. At what age does fun have to take a back seat in sport, do you think? Or do you find, I know it's getting younger and younger, coaches are pushing, or parents are pushing athletes, it's more serious at a younger age. But where would you see where, like, would it be 16 or 17 where a child would have to kind of make a bigger decision on sports being more serious, if you get what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're meaning. I would say never, in the sense of not being fun. I mean, I work with a lot of professional athletes, and if you were to watch a practice session, you probably see a lot of joking around. I do a lot of terrible dance moves if there's music playing in the batting cages. So we keep it very light and fun, but at the same time, and it is a tough balance for a lot of coaches and parents, is that at the same time, we create these standards and expectations and demands that say this is what is required to have success at this level. So we're going to have fun trying to accomplish those things. But in those moments, it's going to be very challenging and difficult. And there's going to be moments that it's hard and we're going to push you to do things. But we're still going to find ways to have fun in as much as we can in those things. For example, my son goes to a weekly soccer training right now where they gamify and everything really well. And they do all these tests with the iPad and timing. And so a ball will shoot out at him, soccer ball will shoot out, and he has to, stop it and kick it into one of these holes. And it'll tell you how long it took you, the ball, to get from there to there and into the hole. And it'll say like 2.8 seconds, 4.7 seconds. And my 10-year-old son, I noticed that he actually really enjoys going to soccer practice now, because even though they're working hard, they're finding a way to gamify it, make it fun, measure it. And my son really responds well to, the gamify metrics side of it. He loves Fortnite and these video games, and, he keeps stats. So I just think that if you can always find ways to incorporate or gamify fun, and to some degree, I think it can be done forever in the game. I just think at some point, hopefully we've made this fun environment for kids to thrive in. At some point, let's say it's 13, 14 years old, maybe a little bit later, the conversation has to be changed to asking, what does the kid want? And if the kid says, I just want to have fun and play the sport, then that's fine. Let's keep doing that thing. But if my son or daughter comes to me and says, Dad, I want to be a professional, or Dad, I want to go play at the college level, and I want to play on the varsity team or the best team, then I'm going to tell them this is what it takes to do that. This is a very difficult road. We've got to get in the weight room. We've got to do all these things. You've got to work on your technical skills, and you can't do it 1 hour a week. It's going to take, maybe 2 hours a day, whatever that thing is. We're going to create that. And then I'm going to hold them to that standard that they said they wanted to do. And at some point, they may say it's too hard. I don't want to do it. And as parents, you just got to figure out, how do we push them through some of the challenging roadblocks? But how do we also let them say, you know what, Dad, I thought I wanted this thing. And you know what, I want to do music instead, or I want to do engineering or something else. And then as parents, we have to be okay with that and say, you know what? That they had a great run. They got to do it for 15 years, 17 years. And so, I think it's challenging as a parent and a coach, but I think the more we listen to our kids and what they really want in their hearts, and instead of dictating what they should be doing and want to do, I think that process is a lot better.
Yeah, we have with our kids and teens program, it's general strength and conditioning. Some of them are playing sports, some of them aren't playing sports. As some have showed interest in competing in Olympic lifting or competing in powerlifting or competing in CrossFit or doing something along those lines or going into a higher level in their sport. And as I always say to them, is you should be enjoying what you're doing, but when you want to take it seriously, a little bit more seriously, it's a different conversation because you have to change your training. And you have to commit a little bit more and you have to sacrifice a little bit more. And I have a 6-year-old now. He's playing I don't know if a Gaelic football in Ireland is the Irish. It's our own national sport. Nice. He's been doing that for about 8 months, and he wants to play basketball. I played basketball, so I'm like, yeah, let's play basketball. But I'm like, we're going to finish out the season, and then we'll go for a basketball camp, see how we go, and if you like 5 days of it, then we'll find a team and get you on a team. He's also showed interest in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because he's seen it on YouTube. I'm like, okay. And I know you speak about kids playing multi-sports, and I want him to try, but I've never wanted him. I'm always kind of like, what would you like to play that? Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see if we can find somewhere and we'll go play and see if you like it. And if you like it or don't like it. And kind of one of my things is I don't care what you do once you're doing something that's keeping you healthy. Because you see it too often, and this I suppose leads into the next question when it comes to specialization of kids in a young age. And I know you talk about that a lot, and I've personally seen it where kids age 12, 13 are burning out and they're quitting sport. Primarily females, it tends to be a little bit more from just my experience. And part of it, I think, is kids are winning from the age of 8 to 12. They're winning. And then something happens and they start slowing down, or other kids start catching up. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, you're not winning anymore. And I suppose that's a hard thing to take when you were the best, you were number one, you're going places. And then it's like, actually, no, you weren't that good. It's just other kids weren't as developed as you then.
It's in the United States, we created this problem. We pretty much killed multi-sport athletes because kids are specializing so much nowadays that you almost have to specialize in order to keep climbing the ladder to a degree. Now, I know some of these athletes. I've come across some of these athletes is that there are athletes who are incredible. I call them freaks of nature athletes who they can play 5 different sports and they're still going to make it to the top of the food chain because they're just incredible athletes. I would say that in the United States, like for me, I was a good athlete. I was not an incredible athlete. So I was able to play these 4 sports, and I still had an opportunity to play college in 2 sports. But if I had played in 2022 versus 1996, it would have been a lot different. For me, I never specialized. And I think that may have been would have been the difference between me playing at a high level and not, if I had chosen to specialize and had done that. So I think because we've gone so crazy over the specialization thing across the world, especially the United States, what has happened is now you kind of have to specialize if you really want to move up that rank. Now, I'm not talking about 8 years old or 10 years old or 12 years old, but 13, 14, if you say, hey, Dad, I really want to be a professional baseball player, I want to be a professional basketball player, whatever this thing is, or college, but you also love these other 4 sports, just so you know, every other kid that's wanting to do that, they are practicing that sport year round, 365 days there and 7 days a week. And so we're killing the specialization because the specialized training has become so intense that the athletes who are just enjoying multi-sport athletes, they're just not able to keep up with those. So, I would say at some point, my kids, my 3 youngest are 8, 10, and 4 right now. I want them to play every sport that they love. If you like it, let's do it. Lacrosse, basketball, we're doing soccer, baseball, we're doing all the sports. But my hope is that, around 13, 14, I want to try to help them find maybe the one sport that they really want to focus on. Or if they say, hey, Dad, I just like playing all these sports and it's fun, and when I go to college, I don't really want to play, then cool, I'm on board for, let's do as much fun stuff as possible, play as many sports. But I just think we've kind of created this issue, this problem that you kind of do have to specialize unless, again, you recognize that you're just an incredible freak of nature athlete.
Yeah, and I do think that, like, as you age, you will just get a little bit old. You will just kind of find a sport that suits you a little bit more, as part of just growing up. You'll just gravitate towards one sport. You'll have more friends in that sport probably, and that's where your social circle is. And I just think that, like, it is a kind of an eventuality. But the likes of, like, as you say, like, you're playing sports year round. Like we've some athletes, and they're playing a single sport, but they're playing for 3 different age groups in that sport. And then when they're in their off season, they're in camps or specialized programs to help them. And I'm like, when are you going to rest? Because when you don't, like, you can't. Like, it's like saying, like, you're gonna keep loading weight every day, and you're never gonna plateau. Your body has to come down off the weight. It has to. It's like weight training. Like, if you take weight training, you have to have deload. In sports, you have to have deload. Otherwise, you, like, burnout injury, all that stuff happens. And I find that it frustrates when I see it, because I've seen it a few times in some kids that I've coached. I've seen kids getting broke. One girl in particular got severely broke because she was pushed. She was brilliant, pushed till her knees gave way, and now she doesn't play anymore. And I'm like, that's sad. 17, barely. Like, I don't even know if she's on the club team anymore. But yeah,
and it's fairly common, to be honest with you. I mean, I think that it happens more and more often than we'd like, for sure.
Yeah. One of the things, like, again, there's so much content on your channel, and if anyone is listening, please, you could check the channel, because especially if you're a coach or your parent. But you talk a lot about character for athletes, and that even over the exceptional athlete, that you're willing, and other coaches that you've spoken about are willing to cut a player based off their character. And I know there was one specific one they spoke about, people with social media, and if their content isn't great, or it's they're doing, like, silly things on, they could lose their spot based off their character and their attitude. Like, obviously that's something that you're very kind of, you speak about a lot, but how do you help athletes build that character? Is it something that you deliberately work with, or is it?
Yeah. So I think as a coach, if you coach a team or athletes, I think you have to figure, and as parents, if you're listening, the whole point of athletics, at least youth athletics and beyond, to me, I mean, we're talking about, less than 1% of kids, way less than that, are going to play professionally and make a living out of this thing. And as much as parents think that the percentage is higher, the percentage is very, very low. So The goal of youth sports and high school athletics is not to play professional sports. This is not the goal. The goal of sports, especially team sports, is to teach life lessons about, how to deal with adversity, how to work well with others, all of these things. So if we're playing the sport or coaching the sport and we're not teaching those life lessons along the way, we're really messing things up. The life lessons are not winning and losing. There are some life lessons in regards to winning and losing, but those are not the things, or the life lessons of making it professional. So as parents and coaches, we have to identify what are the things. And for me, it's helping athletes take ownership of their journey and their life and their responsibilities, taking responsibility for their things, no excuses. So all the life lessons that are involved in that. So as coaches, we've got to find time and energy to teach those things. And whether it's, let's say in college here, in sports here and the NCAA, teams average about 20 hours a week of practice. Well, if you're not spending at least 1 hour a week sitting down and talking to your team about culture, ownership, accountability, integrity, teamwork, if we're not teaching those things and practicing those things, I don't know why we're doing this. Again, like what is the point of youth athletics? To have fun until we get burned out or injured or something like that, and then we quit. So the goal is to teach these life lessons along the way. So character is really important. And as coaches and parents, we need to be the ones to teach these lessons in these things. So parents, if you're listening and you've got a kid who comes home from practice and says, well, this happened and the coach is unfair and all of these things, I instead of saying, well, your coach is a mean coach, he must not understand, he's a terrible coach. To me, I'm going to say, okay, what are the life lessons we can learn about dealing with adversity? How are you going to deal with this? How are you going to communicate to the coach? All of these things, communication. So to me, at the end of the day, what is the point of this whole thing? And to me, the point of athletics is to teach life lessons so that when you go out in the world, you're going to be a good person. You're going to love your neighbor, and you're going to be someone who contributes in this society.
Yeah, and we started this 2 years ago, where every summer we have our teens come in and we have a 2-hour mindset. And we talk about coaching, mindset, what their fears are, what their goals are, what happens if you don't make it, what happens if you do. And one of we have rules when it comes to the gym, especially with our kids. And one of the rules is like being a good human is literally the top of my list. I don't care what you can lift, what you can play, but are you a nice person? And respect everyone that respects you. And you don't have to like everyone, but you can respect the fact that they're on their journey and they're doing their thing. Now, I know we don't have a lot of time, and I'm just going to kind of wrap things up with this last bit, if that's okay with you. So just in regards, because like this was brilliant and I really did enjoy it. And if you haven't got it yet, get it. If you're a coach, definitely get it, because I know I can relate to some of the stories, one or two of the stories. But when it comes to parents who kind of, I suppose you'd say pushy parents are trying to live their professional career through their kids, what would be your kind of biggest piece of advice you could give a parent who thinks that their kid should be pushed or needs to go into specialized coaching to become the 1%? Where would you have
so
one thing? There's loads.
Yeah. So my best advice with that is that, my oldest kid is 26 years old now, and I'm the oldest of 7 kids, and 6 of us played in college. And so as a parent, if I'm speaking to a parent, my first thing is you want to be able to enjoy watching your son or daughter play for as long as possible. And if they quit playing at 10, 11, 12 years old because of you, 20 years down the road, you're going to be really sad and regret that. Versus if you created an environment to let them play as long as they could, 16, 17, 18, maybe beyond. And, most of the parents I talk to that are older and their kids are out of the house, they would say they would give anything to have one more day at the field watching their kids play. And so if you keep that perspective in mind, when it comes to approaching your kids, my best advice is kids, their journey has to be player athlete driven. It cannot be parent driven. If it is parent driven, you're the only one driving the cart, and you're dragging them along behind you. At some point, they're going to fall off and let go, and they're going to move on to something else. But if you can find a way to put them in the driver's seat and you along the passenger seat and encourage them and create this great environment and help them navigate the map, they're going to drive that cart a lot further than you dragging them, behind, kicking and screaming. And so, for parents and I know it's hard. I know I come across a lot of parents living through their kids and they saw that they failed, they failed at their own athletic journey and they want to make it better. And there's times we do have to push our kids sometimes to accomplish what they can accomplish. But here's the thing, parents, if you have a really good relationship and your kid knows that you're on their side of the cart and helping them out and encouraging them, when it comes to adversity and they have to push something through, when you tell them, hey, I believe in you, you can do this, I'm going to help you push through, that's a lot different than you saying, you have to do it, I'm going to push you. And again, like I get the image of dragging them to push through something. That may have success in that one day, that one moment, but it's not going to have success long term. So allow your kids to drive the cart. And the best way to be, a co-pilot in that is to listen more and talk less and find out what is your kid really about, what do they enjoy, and then finding ways to create that environment that they can thrive in.
And that's brilliant. That's a thing. Like, listen more, talk less. I always say that about coaching. A good coach sees a lot, says a little. But Matt, thank you very much for joining me on the show. It means a lot. All your social media will be in the show notes when we release it next week. So guys, if you are not following Matt, he's got some amazing content. Even if you're from Ireland and you don't know much about baseball, he still has amazing content about coaching and development of athletes, and just some funny memes every now and again, which is quite cool. Matt, thank you very much for being on the show.
Stephen, thanks for having me on. And my bucket list is getting to Ireland. So maybe you and I can connect in person next time.
100%. 100%.
You're listening to the Live, Live, Play podcast.